Hey guys, I just wanted to do a quick video to demonstrate the pen and ink techniques we talked about before the break for those of you who maybe missed it or need a little bit more practice. I was just going to do a quick demo for you so that you could see how to do these again or to refresh your memory. So for hatching, the lines go in one direction, but the lines can go horizontally, they can go vertically or diagonally, but they're just going in one direction. So for the hatching, we want to start, we're really going to space, for the lightest, we're really going to space the lines really far apart because we want this to be our lightest value, okay? And then subsequently, as I go along, then I'm going to get a little bit closer. There's a little bit closer. Here's even a little bit closer than that. You can just see it's gradually getting darker. Okay, and then I'm going to start to get even a little bit more close together. And pen and ink is not, it's kind of a free, it's not precise. Your lines aren't going to be perfectly straight, and that's completely the way that it's supposed to be. As I get darker, I'm going to kind of overlap a little bit to get rid of any of the space in between. And then last but not least, I have my darkest value. So I'm really gonna I went that way once. Now I'm going back up again. And there's my darkest. So you kind of see a progression from lightest to darkest. For the cross hatching, what we're going to be doing is we're going to have one line going in one direction and then another line coming diagonally. So for example, for the 45-degree, the same thing, we would have these lines spaced really far apart, and then I would just have diagonal lines kind of crossing like that. So for the lightest, they're going to be really far apart, just like how they were up here for the hatching. So again, I'm just going to have maybe like 4 lines there and 4 lines there, okay? And then the same thing's going to happen as we go along. We're going to get the lines a little bit closer together. And then keep going closer and closer. I'll do a few more. You can see it's slowly starting to get darker. For the cross hatching 90, what's going to happen is we're going to have lines going in one direction, and then we're going to have diagonal lines that go one way, and then we're going to have diagonal lines that go the other way. And so same thing as you go about this, what you will do is these lines will be really far apart. And then down here, these lines are going to be really, really, really close together. So you're going to have lines going horizontally, and you're going to have lines going diagonally, and then you're going to have lines going really trying to get a really dark value, but you want to do it so that you can still see what the hatching technique was. Okay. Some of you had trouble with the scribble scramble. What it is it's basically like, think about making, you can just think about making like figure eights, but they're really spaced. I could probably even have these spaced even further apart here. So if I go over here, like it's just moving your pen around like that. So it's not just scribbling like really hard, but it's just kind of like taking your pen like that. So it's like making figure eights and coming around. And each time what's happening is you are reducing the white space, the negative space in between your lines. And then when it's here, again, they're just going to be really overlappy. But you're not scribbling like crazy. It's just kind of like so just try making figure eights. It's getting nice and dark. Okay. Also make sure you fill your entire squares when you're doing this. For the stippling dashes, some of you are doing like, it's not hatching, but it's actually dashes. So it's just horizontal, small horizontal dashes, kind of like that. So if it was the lightest, there's only going to be a few. And then you're going to get a little bit closer together. But we want to make sure that we can see that it's an actual, they're actual dashes. The other thing with this practice worksheet is it gets you familiar with the techniques. And in your final project, you may not, for example, you may not enjoy stippling, doing dots or dashes, so that might not be a technique that you really focus on in your shading of your final project, or it may be one that you do like, and so you will focus on that one. Some of these you might find that you enjoy more than others. For the dots, the stippling, again, this is a very tedious one that maybe a lot of people might not really want, but it's really super cool if you have the patience for it. So these are really spaced out. When you get to this one, it's going to take a while to get this. And you're not smashing the point of the pen because you don't want to ruin it, but you are just like tapping, tap, 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 tap lightly. And getting those all really nice together. For the original, I enjoyed a lot of you, the lines that you came up with. You can choose like a shape or a line. For example, maybe you want to do like pluses, or maybe you want to do circles, right? So if I was doing circles, I would have them be really big to start. And then as I go along, I would start to make them smaller and closer together. The cool thing about pen and ink is that it allows you to really focus on texture in your work. And so when I get to here, I'm really making small, really close together circles. Okay. Another thing that I wanted to kind of show you guys is how this plays, how this comes into play when you're actually using it. And so I'm going to grab another piece of paper and I'll show you that in just 1 second. All right, guys, last but not least, I'm going to kind of show you how this kind of plays out when you are doing a drawing. For example, I'm just going to grab a pen here. So let's say this is a gel pen, and you can use these pens too. I'm just going to draw, let's just say, I'm going to draw an apple. Okay, and you can also use these lines. You can use what are called contour lines. And so I'm just kind of making some lines that are going around the outer contour shape of my apple to give it some form. And then where it gets darker, so let's say this edge over here, so these contour lines would get closer together, and then they would start to space out more. And then that way, and then I can also do the, but this kind of gives you an idea of how you can use the lines. That's one way, and that's not even using the hatching, but it's just using the contour lines. For example, let's say I was drawing a cherry, which is kind of like a sphere, like that, but let's say I was using the stippling technique, right? So initially, if the light source was coming from over here, obviously this side would be the darkest, and because with pencil we could just use dark and light values, but with pen there's really is only one value if you just use the actual pen. So these techniques allow you to get different values and still create form in your artwork. So where the darkest area is, and then it's going to spread out more over there. And then I want to kind of transition it. So kind of like that gives you an idea. Also, we just talked about drawing cylinders for our cakes. And again, same thing. Let's say I draw a cylinder. I'm just going to draw kind of like this. And let's say I was doing hatching. Well, initially, my lines on, let's say my light source was coming from over here. My lines would be far apart, but as I get closer to the edge of the cylinder, then my lines are going to get closer together, which then starts to make this look like it has form. And then you can also, we can also then add more shading in there to make it look there, and same thing for the shadow. There's kind of hatching. If it was cross hatching, so that's allowing us to, and if we were doing it even the other way, so there's how you can kind of see how you can use those different techniques when you want to make something go from being a shape and transforming it into a form. The other thing that will matter is certain pens have different thicknesses. So you can get heavier and lighter lines depending on the thickness of the tip of the marker that you are using. This one is a calligraphy tip. That's not going to work, but this one's a little bit thinner. I'm going to grab maybe... Hold on one sec. I'm going to grab a thicker pen and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, I'm back. So this tip, this marker tip is a lot thicker than the other one. So just depending on the look that you want, if you want to have more of a bold look, you can use a thicker pen. But you can see it gives you two different Okay, so I hope this helps you guys as you begin to start your project. And as always, any questions, just let me know.